Hey third graders, it's Miss Cook. All right, we're going to get started with our first ever math lesson on distance learning. Some of you might be pretty nervous or scared, but for this whole week and next week, we're just going to be doing review lessons. So hopefully that's not too scary. It's things that we've already learned in class, but maybe we needed a little bit more practice with. So we are going to work together through this. We'll take it slow. The cool thing about distance learning is that if you get overwhelmed or you need to take a break, you can pause me, which would be cool if you could have done it in real life, right? You can't just click pause and make Miss Cook stop talking, but now with distance learning, you'll be able to. So again, if you get overwhelmed or if you're confused about anything, you can rewatch this video as many times as you want. You can pause it if you need to. Any of those things are available to you. We're going to take it slow, and I will always, at the end, you'll have like a little form to fill out for practice problems. And on the bottom of it, I'll always give you an option to ask questions, okay? Because I can't have you ask questions right now while you're watching it. So make sure you, like maybe during the middle of a lesson, if you're having problems with something, pause the video, write down your question, and then you can send it to me later, okay? So any of those, I'm here to help you, okay? Even though I can't be with you in person. So just make sure that you write down your questions so then maybe you don't forget them at the end. For this lesson, all you need is something to write on and something to write with. So you can have a paper and pencil, or you can do a whiteboard and marker, whatever works for you, but you will be doing the practice problems along with me because you won't learn just by watching. You need to also practice it yourself. All right, let's get started. All right, so our target for this video is I can solve addition and subtraction word problems with unknown addends, okay? So we're going to keep practicing with those word problems that we were doing right before spring break. With unknown addends, and you're probably thinking, Miss Cook, I already forgot what addends are. That's okay, we're going to review it, okay? All right, so this is the vocabulary that we're going to use in this video. We're going to have unknown addends, which we'll talk about here in a second. Sum can also be, another word we use, remember, is total. The sum is the total. Equation, equality, the total, and variable. So total and sum are pretty much the same thing. Then we'll also be talking about variables again, and it's okay if you forgot what that was. We'll talk about it in here in just a second. All right, first things first. Some of you are thinking, Miss Cook, we already did this. Why do I need to do it again? But we're just going to review for this week and next week. So it's okay if you already know how to do this. We're just going to continue to practice. There's no such thing as too much practice, right? Okay, so looking at our math mountain, if you guys remember what that is, we've got our math mountain over here. And we always put the sum or the total at the top of our math mountain, and then we have our two addends, okay? The two addends are what we add together to get the total. So do you guys remember we talked about with addition and subtraction problems, there's 8 different ways to write that equation. So we're used to the 4 different ways. You can do 2 addition problems and 2 subtraction, but remember they have more ways because they can put the total first, the equal at the beginning. So if we were to label this would be the total, my big number. This is my addend. Also, I'm drawing with a mouse, so if it looks really ugly, that's why. This is kind of hard to write on the computer like this. Okay, and then we have our addend. So these 2 numbers together, if we add them together, gives us our total. Okay, same thing here. We've got our addend plus our addend gives us the total. Okay, remember that when we have subtraction problems, like down here, we always put the total first when we're subtracting. Okay, it wouldn't make sense to say 40 minus 70 equals 110 because you can't subtract a number and get a bigger number, right, at the end. So we've got our total minus one of our addends will give us another addend. All right, so this was just a review, so I'm not going to spend forever on this. I think most of you have this down. Just the addend plus the addend gives us our total. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so remember there was 8 different ways to write the same equation. So if we have the math mountain, 80 and 60 equals 140. So we would label this is our addend. Our other addend is 60, and then our total is 140. So I'm just going to go over the 4 basic ways that we would write this equation. We could write it as 60 plus, this is hard to draw with, plus 80 equals 140, right? And then another way to flip those is we could write 80 plus 60, right? Remember with adding, it doesn't matter what order you add them in. You'll always get the same answer. So 80 plus 60 equals 140. Hopefully In a couple weeks, I'll get better at drawing on here. Okay, and then we can also write our subtraction problems. Remember, with our subtraction problems, we always have to put the total first, right? So I've got 140, take away 80, take away one of my addends, gives me the other addend. Okay, so like I was talking about on the first page, we always have to have our total first for subtraction. I couldn't say 80 minus 60 equals 140, right? Because 140 is a bigger number. I can't subtract from a small number and get a bigger number, okay? 80 minus 60 is 20, right? But that wouldn't be in our fact family. We're looking at these three numbers and all the different ways we can use these three numbers to write addition and subtraction problems. Okay, so if you had a problem with that, make sure you jot down any questions that you may have had with that, but I'm going to move on because this, again, is review. Okay, so let's do some practice problems. Okay, Chris is our first famous person in this math lesson. So Chris, we're going to read through this problem and we're going to build math mountains to help us solve the problem. Okay, we always remember ask ourselves, do I know the total? And if I don't know the total, what am I doing? Okay, so if you guys have ever seen Dora the Explorer, you know how she takes really long pauses after she asks her questions to give you guys time to think. I'm going to be Dora the Explorer and do some of that too. Okay, so if you don't know your total on your math mountain, remember you got to ask yourself, what do I have to do to find the total? And then if you do know your total, what are you doing? So that's what we'll be reviewing in this lesson. So let's read through the problem, and we're going to look for keywords that are going to tell us, am I adding or am I subtracting? Okay, Chris's group picked 80 apples. His mother's group picked 60 more. How many apples do they have now? Okay, so ask yourself, do I know the total in this problem? What are some keywords that I could use to find, or that will help me know if I'm adding or subtracting? Okay, so if you're thinking, I've got a cool highlighting tool. If you're thinking, if we go through it, Chris's group picked 80 apples. His mother's group picked 60 more. I would say more is going to help me know if I'm adding or subtracting. When I see the word more, I know I'm adding, okay? I don't know my total in this problem. I know that Chris picked 80 and his mom picked 60, but I don't know how many they have in all. If I know my two addends, what am I missing? The total, okay? So I would write this equation as 60 plus 80 equals the total. Okay, and I'm actually going to use variables since we've been practicing with variables. Remember, variable is just a letter that you can use in place of a question mark. Like if you don't know the number, you can use a variable. I always use J because my name's Jessie. J is a good letter. Okay, so 60 plus 80 equals J. I could also write it as 80 plus 60 equals J. Either one, doesn't matter. Okay, so to find the total, there's several strategies for me to find this. I could think of it as 6 tens plus 8 tens and add those together. Well, 6 plus 8 is 14. 14 tens would be 140. Another way I could think about that is I could start at 80 and I could count on 60 more. 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140. See how I added 6 more tens on there? Okay, so I have 140 apples. And you guys know that we always label, but it is so hard to write with this mouse, I'm not going to label right now. Okay, so let's look at the next problem. Get my highlighting tool. We're going to look for those keywords that tell me if I'm adding or if I'm subtracting. Chris's group had 140 apples. They ate 80 of them. How many apples do they have now? Okay, so I want you to think, what's the keyword in here that tells me if I'm going to add or if I'm going to subtract? Good, it's 8. I'm going to pretend that you guys answered and I could hear you. It's always weird talking to myself in my bedroom. Okay, Chris's group had 140 apples. They ate 80 of them. So I know that I'm subtracting because if you eat something, you're taking it away, right? So if I drew my little math mountain, I'm going to ask myself, do I know my total? Yes, I know my total. I know that he had 140 apples in all. So I'm going to put my total at the top. And then they ate 80 of them. There's one of my addends. But I don't know my other addend. I'm going to put an A for apples. Okay. So how can we figure out what the other addend is? With this one, we knew both of our addends, but we didn't know the total, so we added them together to find the total. With this one, we know one addend, we know our total, but we're missing one of our addends. This is when we have to subtract. Okay, so I will take 140 minus one of my addends will give me the other addend. Okay. Now, one way to think about this, a lot of you are saying, well, Ms. Cook, we just did this problem up here. I know it's 60. But if you didn't have done this problem right above it, then we can use a strategy to help us find what 140 minus 80 is. I could think of it as 14 tens minus 8 tens. Or I could count up from 80 until I get to 140. I'm going to do that. 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140. I have 6 fingers up. Okay, so I know that it was 60. Okay, so there's 2 different ways. These math mountains are very similar, right? That we have the same fact family, the same 3 numbers. First problem, didn't know the total, so we had to add. Second problem, we didn't know an addend, so we had to subtract to find the addend. Okay? All right, let's look at the next ones. Okay, here's where some of my celebrities come in. CJ had 60 action figures. His older brother Dylan gave him 50 more. How many action figures does CJ have now? I'm going to go look for my keywords. CJ had 60 action figures. His older brother Dylan gave him 50 more. I'm going to say more is my keyword in there to help me know that I'm adding in this problem. How many action figures does CJ have now? So if I build my math mountain, I'm going to ask myself, do I know my total? No, right? I don't know how many he has now. I don't know the total. So I'm going to put a C for CJ. Okay, then I know he has 60 to start with. And then his brother gave him 50 more. And we're going to try to figure out how many he has in all. Okay, if I know both of my addends, but I don't know my total, what am I doing? I'm adding, right? I got to add these 2 addends together to get the total. It's awkward to do those long pauses, but hopefully it will help you guys to think before I just answer it for you, right? 60 plus 50 equals C. Okay, 60 plus 50, we could count on. I like to think about it as if I took 10 off this one, it would be 50 plus 50 is 100, and then add that 10 back on, that's 110. I could think of it as 6 plus 5. Well, 6 plus 5 is 11, and then that's 11 10, so I got to put my 0 back on there. So C equals 110 action figures. Okay, so that was one way to do it. Let's do another problem. I'm going to get my highlighting tool so we can look for our keywords in this problem. Daniela brought 80 cupcakes to the class party. Her best friend Lucy brought 30 cupcakes. How many cupcakes did they bring all together? Okay, so looking through it, looking for my keyword that helps me know if I'm adding or if I'm subtracting. How many cupcakes did they bring all together? I would say all together would be my keyword that helps me know if I'm going to add or I'm going to subtract. Let's draw a math mountain. I've got my math mountain. I have to ask myself now, do I know my total? No. I do not know my total, right? I'm trying to figure out how many there are all together. So I don't know my total. I'm going to do a C for cupcakes. Okay. I know that Daniela brought 80 and Lucy brought 30. Okay. When you know both of your addends, just like in the problem above, but you don't know your total, what operation are you doing? Are you multiplying, dividing, subtracting, or adding? You're adding, right? You got to put these 2 together to find the total. 80 plus the 30 more that Lucy brought will give us our total amount of cupcakes. Okay, so 80 plus 30, I'm just going to count on by tens. 80, 90, 100, 110. Okay, that's kind of crazy. We had the same answer as the one above, but we have different numbers. Okay, so total amount of cupcakes, 110 cupcakes. All right, some of you are rolling your eyes at me like, Miss Cook, we've already done all this. But some of you, it's great practice for it, and we're just going to do this all together. It's good practice for me, too, because I've kind of got rusty on my teaching. All right, let's look at the next one. I'm going to get my highlighting tool so I can highlight my keywords. There were 110 juice boxes at the picnic for Miss Agnes. Emma put 60 of the juice boxes out on the picnic tables and then left the rest in the picnic basket. How many juice boxes are in the picnic basket? Okay, I would say my key word here is she left the rest. Okay, she put some out, but then she left the rest in the basket. Let's draw our math mountain to help us figure this one out. Math mountain. So you ask yourself, do I know my total? Okay, I'm going to read it again. We're going to look to see if we know our total. There were 110 juice boxes at the picnic for Miss Agnes. Emma put 60 on the picnic tables and the rest in the basket. How many juice boxes are in the picnic basket? Do I know my total? Yes, I know my total. I know that they started with 110 juice boxes, okay? I know that there's 60 on the picnic tables, but I don't know how many are in the picnic basket. Okay, so I'm going to put a J for juice boxes. Okay, so if I know one of my addends, but I don't know my other addend, what operation am I doing? Am I adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? I need to subtract, right? So I have my total. I always put my total first when I'm subtracting. 110 minus those 60 that Emma already put out on the picnic tables will give me whatever is left over, right? And remember, you can write this in several different ways. You could write it as 110 minus the juice boxes in the picnic table will be the 60 that Emma left out. You could say Emma's 60 juice boxes plus the juice boxes that are in the picnic table will give me 110 juice boxes in all. Or you could even say the juice boxes in the picnic basket plus Emma's 60 will give me 110 in all. Okay, 4 different ways to write that equation. This one up at the top is kind of my solution equation. Remember we talked about that. It's the one that will give me the answer, right, with the equal. Okay, 110 minus 60. I can think of it as 11 minus 6, right? I could count up from 60 until I get to 110. There's several different ways. I'm going to count up from 60. 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110. Okay, so I have 5 tens, so J equals 50. There were 50 juice boxes still in the picnic basket. Okay, all right, hopefully we're doing okay. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, we also talked about this in class, the non-equal, and I think you guys had a lot of fun with making those equations that weren't equal on both sides. So we're looking at these two symbols, the equal sign and the is not equal sign, okay? Remember we talked about an expression is a combination of numbers and variables, but it doesn't have an equal sign. So an expression could be J times 3 plus 2. Okay, there's an expression. It doesn't have an equal sign. We're not looking for the answer. It just has the numbers together. An equation, though, is made up of 2 equal quantities or expressions. Remember we said an equation is kind of like a scale. Okay, they have to be balanced on both sides to show that they're equal. Okay, so if we look at this one, 8 equals 5 plus 3. 5 plus 3 is 8, so 8 equals 8, that's balanced, right? 8 and 5 plus 3 are the same amount. They would be balanced on the scale. If we look at more, 4 plus 2 equals 6. Well, 4 plus 2 is 6, so they are balanced on both sides, okay? Let's look at this weird one. 6 minus 2. Well, 6 minus 2 is 4, and 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 2 more is 4. So that one is also balanced. That's why I have an equal sign. It's the same on both sides of the scale. Okay? Then if we look at this weird sign, this has an equal sign but has a slash, so it's saying it's not equal to each other. Okay? For example, this one, 7 is not equal to 5 plus 3. Well, what's 5 plus 3? 5 plus 3 is 8. Is 7 the same as 8? No, right? They're not balanced on both sides, so they cannot be equal to each other. So that's why they put the slash to the equal sign. Let's look at this one over here. 5 plus 2 is not equal to 1 plus 1 plus 3. Well, let's look. 5 plus 2 is 7. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 3 is 5. 7 is not balanced or not equal with 5. Okay? And then if you guys remember, you guys got to make some crazy equal signs, symbols, but then you got to make those silly ones where you made really long ones that were not equal to each other, like 1,000,000 plus 2,000,000 equals 3, right? Okay? So this was just review. All right, so here's some more examples of ones. So 160 equals what plus 90? Well, I could count up from 90 till I get to 160, right? Or I can think of 16 minus 90. I'm going to count up 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160. So I have 7. So those are balanced now on the same side. If I wanted to do 30 plus something is not equal to 120, I could put really any number here except for the right answer, right? 30 plus 2 is not equal to 120, okay? So again, that's just a review of what we had talked about before. All right, so here's your keywords to look for when you're doing addition and subtraction word problems. For when you're adding, you're going to look for what is the total number? How many all together? How many in all? How many now? How many in total? Okay? When we're taking away or we're subtracting from each other, we look for questions like how many are left? How many now? How many remain? How many are still there? Okay? Those help us. If you notice this how many now and how many now is in adding and subtracting. So that's when you got to really look for those keywords if something is getting taken away or eaten or stolen or lost, or if it's something where they're joining two groups together, then you'd be adding, right? So these are our adding ones, these are subtracting. This might help you to come back to this video if you're looking for those keywords. That might be helpful. Or if you want me to post that in the Google Classroom too, so you can come back to that, I can do that too. Just make sure you comment it in your assignment. I'm going to put a question at the bottom that says you can give me suggestions or ask questions, okay? So if you do want that, I can send it to you. Okay, so let's practice a couple more. Casey had 12 books. She borrowed 17 more books from her friend Leah. How many books does Casey have now? Okay, so do I know my total? And you're going to create a math mountain and solve the problem. Okay, I'm going to have you pause the video here, and I want you to try it on your own, okay? Obviously, I'm not going to pause the video, but you need to pause the video right now. Try this on your own. Welcome back. You came back from practicing it on your own. Now let's go over it. Okay, so we have our math mountain. She had 12 books, and she borrowed 17 more books. I would say my keyword in here would be more. She's getting more books from her friend Leah. What a good friend Leah is, right? Okay, so then we're going to go over, and do I know my total? I don't know how many books she has now, right? So I'm going to have, she has her 12 original books. She has her 17 books. How many books does she have now? If I write 12, I have my 2 addends, so I know I'm adding them together to find the total. 12 plus 17. And if it helps you to stack them on top of each other so you can add your 1s and you can add your 10s, that's the great strategy. 7 1s plus 2 1s is 9 1s. 1 10 plus 1 10 is 2 10s. Casey has 29 books now, and hopefully she's reading them in quarantine, right, Casey? Okay, let's look at the next one. So hopefully you did pause your video and you tried that one on your own. That's, I think, the best way we're going to be able to do this, right? I have to just trust that you will practice these things without just watching the video through and not practicing anything. Okay, let's look at the next video. I'm going to have to move my self here in the corner. There you go. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Lily had 22 books. She gave 13 of the books to her friend Tay-Tay. How many books does Lily have now? Okay, I want you to pause the video and try it. Ask yourself, do I know my total? Draw a math mountain. Go. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you paused it. Hopefully you tried it on your own. If you didn't, then this just looks silly that you're that I am just standing there in silence. Okay, so let's draw our math mountain. Do we know our total? Yes, we know that she started with 22 books, and that's all she has in total. Okay, my keywords in this one was she gave them to Tay-Tay. So she's getting rid of them. We're subtracting. Okay, so she gave 13 to Tay-Tay. How many does she have left? Okay, so we have to subtract because we're missing one of our addends, right? We already know the total, so we're going to put our total first, and we're going to subtract to find the other addend. 22 minus 13 will give us B. I'm going to stack those on top of each other to make it easier to subtract from my 1s and my things. Okay, can I take 3 1s from 2 1s? No, right? So I have to go ungroup my 10 and give myself 10 1s. 12 ones minus 3 ones is 9 ones. And then 110 minus 110 is 0 tens, right? So I don't have to write a 0 though. 9 books is what Lily has left over. Okay? All right. Let's see. I'll move myself back now so you can see my face. If it'll... Okay, let's go to the next one. I don't know why it's not taking that part off. Oh well. Okay, so now we're going to do a brain break. So that was a long lesson, and we still have a little bit more, but I want you to take a break. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to pause the video. You're going to do 10 jumping jacks. You're going to reach for the sky for 10 seconds. You're going to touch your toes for 10 seconds, no bending your knees and cheating. And then you're going to dance for 15 seconds, okay? So go ahead and try that, and then come back to me when you are done. Go. All right. Now that you've gotten your brain break, let's try something new. I don't know how to get rid of that little box. It's driving me crazy. Oh well. Okay. Let's kick it up a notch. Now we're going to try problems with unknown addends, okay? So a little bit different. We're going to add variables into it too. So remember, a variable is any letter that we use in place of an unknown number. So it can be any letter. It could be X, it could be R, it could be T, it could be L, it could be M, okay? It doesn't matter. It's just taking the place of the unknown number. All right, let's look at some of these word problems. Okay. Avery invited 80 girls and some boys to her party. 120 kids were invited in all. How many boys were invited? Okay, so we're going to build a math mountain, and we're going to ask ourselves, do I know the total in this problem? Do I know how many kids are in all at the party? Yes, I know that there were 120 kids in total, so I'm going to put 120 kids at the top. Avery invited 80 girls. Okay, so I'm going to put my little label, 80 girls. But do I know how many boys? No. So boys is what I'm missing. Okay, if I know my total, but I'm missing one of my addends, what do I have to do? Subtract, right, to find my other addend. So I'm going to say 120 minus the 80 girls will give me all the kids that are left over, which are boys, right? 120 minus 80 equals B. Remember, there's other ways to write this. You could say 80 girls plus some boys, I'm going to put B for boys, equals 120 kids in all. There's two other ways you could write this problem. This one will give us our solution, right? Okay, 120 minus 80 equals B. I could think of this as 12 tens minus 8 tens. Well, 12 tens minus 8 tens, I know, is 4 tens. So 4 tens is 40. There are 40 boys at Avery's party. That's too many boys, Avery. Okay, let's look at the next one. All right, there were 150 people playing at the park. 70 were playing soccer, and the others were playing volleyball. How many people were playing volleyball? So again, I'm just going to ask myself, do I know my total? And I'm going to fill out my math mountain. Okay, 150 people at the park, 70 playing soccer, the rest were playing volleyball. Do I know my total? Yes. Okay, I know that there was 150 people in all. I know that 70 were playing soccer, and I don't know how many were playing volleyball. I'm going to put a V for volleyball. Okay, if I know my total, but I'm missing one of my addends, what do I have to do? I have to subtract. Okay, 150 people in all minus those 70 people playing soccer will give me all the rest of them who are playing volleyball. Okay, I could also write this as the 70 soccer players plus the volleyball players equals 150 people in all. Okay, 150 minus 70. I'm going to count up from 70 until I get to 150. That's what strategy I'm going to use. 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150. I have 8 tens or 80. 80 people are playing volleyball. Okay. Hopefully this is clear. Hopefully it's Stinks not being able to read your guys' faces and see if you are bored or see if you are understanding it. Hopefully it's going okay. All right, so now we're going to practice. Brooke planted 80 tulips with her mom yesterday. Today, she planted some lilies. Now she has 170 flowers. How many lilies did she plant? So if I draw my math mountain, I'm going to ask myself, do I know the total? I want you guys to go ahead and pause this video and try it on your own. So writing on your paper, go ahead and try it. All right, friends, so do you know your total? Yeah, I know that she had 170 flowers in all. Okay, so I'll put that at the top of my math mountain. I know that 80 of them were tulips and the rest were lilies. I'm going to draw an L for lilies, okay? So if I know my total, but I'm missing one of my addends, what do I have to do? I have to subtract, right? 170 minus the 80 tulips will give me what's left of the lilies, okay? Another way to write it, 80 tulips plus some lilies equals 170 flowers in all, okay? 170 minus 80, if we think of 17 minus 8, so 17 tens minus 8 tens is 9 tens, okay? Or if you want to write them on top of each other, right? You can do this. 0 minus 0 is 0. Okay. You can't take 8 tens from 7 tens. Got to borrow. 17 minus 8 is 9. 90 lilies. Okay. All right, let's look at another one. Okay, let's do this one. Silas's team had 140 footballs. His friend Garrison's team borrowed some. Now Silas's team has 60 footballs. How many did Garrison's team borrow? Okay, I'm going to draw my math mountain. Go ahead, pause the video, try it on your own, and then push play when you're ready to reveal the answer. Go. All right, friends. So I'm going to ask myself, do I know the total? Yeah, I know that he had 140 footballs to start with. Okay, Garrison borrowed some, and he had 60 footballs left over. Okay, I'm going to do an F for footballs. Okay, I know my total, but I don't know one of my addends. So I have to ask myself, how am I going to figure out what my other addend is? Okay, so 140 minus one addend will give me the other addend. Okay, or I could write it as 60 footballs plus the ones that Garrison borrowed will give me the total amount of footballs. Okay, 140 minus 60, let's figure it out. Remember when we did those flash quizzes where you guys were practicing these? Wish I could send those to you right now. Where you had to practice your subtracting by your tens. 0 minus 0 is 0. Can't take 6 tens from 4 tens, so I'm going to go borrow. 14 tens minus 6 tens. Okay, if you count up on your fingers, or if you just subtract 14 minus 6, you get 8. Okay, 8 or 14 tens minus 6 tens is 8 tens, so 80 footballs is how many Garrison's team borrowed. Okay, all right. So that was the end of our lesson. Some of you are asleep. Some of you thought that was fun and got something out of it. Hopefully it was good review for you since we haven't been in school for a couple weeks. But by the end of this lesson, you should be able to solve addition and subtraction word problems with unknown addends, okay? So after this video, I want you to go and click on the link that says week 1, lesson 1 practice, okay? There's only a few problems I want you to answer. Make sure you add a label to your answer, okay? And you need to answer all the problems. Then you push submit. I'm pretty sure that's what it says, is submit. And so that I can look over it and make sure and check if any of you need extra practice or if you need help with it. At the bottom of that, there also is a part where you can just add questions or anything you didn't understand from the video, you can ask me about it, okay? I also am going to put another link in there. I want you to tell me what is a lesson that you would like to see in math. Since we're just doing a review for these 2 weeks, I have one lesson that is open that could be that's student choice. So I'm going to have you guys vote on it and pick which lesson is something that you think you still need practice with, that you don't really remember how to do. I want you to send me, you'll choose. So maybe it's fractions. Maybe you need more help with, I can't even think of what we were learning about, telling time. So you're going to vote on which one you think you need more help with, and then I'll create a lesson over it. Okay, hopefully this was helpful to you guys, and I will see you soon.